Oh, g'day champions. I've got a Mesa Boogie here, you know, my favourite. Studio 22 calibre plus. It's got the pretty cane grill on it. They do look good, I'll give them that. But this one's come in with reports of loud crackling and sound fading in and out. It's also just at first looks there, it's missing one of the faders and they're very, very stiff and a bit bent as well. But we'll have a look at the guts and see if it's the usual Mesa Boogie shit show, and see what we can do to address it. Now, it's no great secret that I'm not the biggest fan of Mesa Boogie for many reasons. They tend to tick all the boxes for guitarists because they're sort of, they promise everything. They try to be a Swiss Army knife, but as a result, they don't really do anything really well. And, you know, that's all subjective. If they work for you and you're happy with how they work for you, then that's fantastic, and I hope they last forever for you. All right, let's get this thing out of the cab, have a look at what we're dealing with. All right, we've got the chassis out. Have a quick look, see what's going on the top side. We've got our weird little aluminium valve guard there with these nylon brackets that love to snap off, and that's just tapered, but they just jam a nut on there, just typical Mesa Boogie thinking. You've got a tiny little power transformer there, almost the same size as the output. So I use my tube socket. This is a two-handed operation. You've got to hold the little plastic clip where you undo the nut and hopefully not break anything, because this nylon hardens over time, particularly with the heat. So it goes really brittle, so they snap. And being out of production amp, there's really no replacement for it. Being a weird custom little nylon clip. Then this silly thing just swings back, and of course someone thought that was genius. Someone would have got a massive pay rise for that. But it goes brittle and they snap. This amp probably hasn't seen much use, so it hasn't happened yet, but the heat builds up here, this stuff goes yellow, brittle, and it just snaps off. Then you've got the supposed, you know, microphonic reducer, whatever that is, foam. It just goes all the way through and eventually end up with hard aluminium rubbing on the nipples of the, you know, rubbing on the nipples of the valves, and you can get a failure of vacuum there. But all the valves have vacuum. The EL84s look like they haven't been cooking too hard, so all the logos are still red, which is nice. Looking down through the top, we can see the circuit board's relatively clean, so that's good. Often these things get really dirty. You can see the silly carbon comps down in there. They don't appear to be burnt or anything. So let's flip her over and look at how much of a pain these things are to work on. Alright, so it looks like there's been some work done here. You've got a lot of discoloration to the board there. That's the other thing. They put like some kind of conformal coating on these things, which can conduct over time, but it also just smells like cat piss when you're working on it and soldering it. It's disgusting. You've got to air the shop out. It's a really astringent, horrible smell. Yeah, I don't know what that is, if it's coming out of the board substrate itself. I think it's a conformal coating. I think I remember someone saying it's the solder mask or whatever. But I haven't smelled that with any other brand, so it's a bit weird. So this kind of stuff's pretty typical for the DC series. Usually a few people have had a go at it by the time it makes it to me. No one really wants to pull the board, so understandably. You've got to remove all the pots off the front and desolder a whole bunch of stuff to get into it. So straight away you're talking $200 labour on top of a typical service, so you're talking 400 plus just to even open the thing and do a service and repair. So you've lost traces here, because probably not so much Mesa's fault as the previous tech. Looks like there was excessive heat used there, or one of the components has fallen out the bottom side of the board. Probably this resistor used to be on the other side and it's overheated. So they've ripped it out and taken a trace with it. You can see down here one of the EQ inductors has been changed at some point. They like to go open circuit as well. Having inductor based EQ is pretty silly because it just picks up a lot of hum from the power transformer that's right near it. Got a little reverb transformer down here which has its leads pulled really tight. That appears to be factory. But overall I can't really see any catastrophic failures that have occurred, at least not to the naked eye. There's possibility that something funky is happening in this area. But essentially, to get this thing flipped over and inspect it, every pot's got to come off. The jacks have to come out. Probably have to remove this board and take it with us. Yeah, because we might be able to desolder those wires, but it's in the way anyway. Those inductors won't allow it to lift. You've got these little nylon standoffs that like to go brittle and snap off as well. And they go discoloured and the plastic degrades. We've got to disconnect quite a few connections. Just take a lot of photos beforehand if you're working on one of these, because the more photos the merrier. You can't have too many. Make sure that you've actually taken them and you know, save them to your SD card or whatever before you start desoldering everything. And you know, ask me how I know. You can see the valve socket pins there. They've got little rings around them, so that solder's all starting to degrade. It's gotten very hot, probably with the previous set of valves, because those valves don't look like they've gotten hot enough to cause this kind of damage. But the solder has gone all oxidized because it's heated up without any flux on it, and then it's cooled down again. And that over time, thermal expansion and contraction causes the solder joints to fail. As usual, everywhere where there's been previous work, there's a big blob of solder and you know, just tack solder joints and dry solder joints and stuff. So all of that's going to need to get addressed as well. Nothing new. Well, we managed to flip the board over and just get just enough give without having to undo all those front panel pots and jacks. It's not real fun to work on, and it's not a amp that you can actually sort of easily test while it's operating, because there's no markings on the other side to show you what component's what. And it's double-sided, so you can't follow the traces easily from the other side. And there's no documentation with a layout, so yeah, it's good fun, eh? And you can see this, actually I didn't notice that hole was supposed to be a standoff, but someone's previously snapped off the retainer on that standoff as well, because that's the one between the two EL84s where it gets the hottest, and the plastic's gone orange and hard and brittle, so it just snaps instead of bending, just like I said. So you can see the area down here where that 5-watt resistor on the other side of the board was. It looks like its diode next to it has gotten so hot that it's melted its own solder at some point. These carbon comps are pretty far out of spec, like 550 ohm there for the screen screen grids, and that one's about 15k, or it should be 10. These look to be replaced at some point, so I reckon at some point in its life it's had a heated to cathode short on the cathode follower, so they're probably burnt out and they've replaced them. They look like the resistors that you get from CE distribution. There's been a cap replaced down there. I'd like to see that lead up a bit higher off that trace, because that can burn through and short out. That's a ground plane there. We're checking all these tantalums. As I said, they love to go short circuit, and all the Mesa Boogie amps are absolutely full of them, so lots of them waiting to go short circuit there. They still use them to this day. I think the Mark 7 series is loaded with them. They're just little time bombs waiting to screw up your day. Okay, so these are the filter network for the foot switch supply, low voltage supply. It's often with Mesas, you think something's something and then it's something else, because you know the foot switch circuit will be down here, but then its filter cap will be up there, and its dropper resistor will be over here, and its switch will be over here, and it just they got traces running all over the place. Like, half of the problems with these things would be solved if they just laid a board out correctly and logically, but they just refuse to. It's like a point of contention now that, no, don't tell me how to lay out a board. I'll put the fucking dropper resistor over here and a fucking filter capacitor over here, and you know, another dropper over here for the same supply circuit. It's just insanity. But it's never going to change. I mean, this amp's 1 year younger than me. I'd like to think that I've learned a bit since then, but Mesa do the same thing they did in 1985. So I think I'm going to have to put this one back together and actually power it up and take some measurements, because doing all my passive testing, nothing immediately is jumping out at me. So I'll take some photos of this side of the board, so when I flip it over I'll be able to superimpose that on the bottom side and know where all the traces go, which is another trick that's handy to do with Mesas, just so you know where you're steering at. And just do a straight up voltage check first of every valve pin, and just check that the output stage is operating as it should be, and then battle on from there. So I'll probably talk to you on the next one, Legends, when I know a little bit more, because there's going to be a bit of head scratching and possibly a little bit too much swearing for video. So I'll see you on the next one when I'm a bit less clueless.